Draw simple, easy.
Well, hello there guys and welcome. Long time no see. Today we're going to be drawing a quick, simple, easy picture of Major Motoko Kusanagi from Ghost in the Shell. We're going to be going with the standalone complex version of the anime character, one of the most easily recognisable versions. So why don't you go ahead and grab yourself a small sheet of paper at home, get yourself a super cheap pencil, any type will do, but I'm using a mechanical HB, and follow along at home. We're going to use some basic shapes. So start off by drawing a circle right in the top centre of your page. I'm going to make sure that my construction lines are a little bit darker than I usually do things, just so that hopefully it's going to show up nice and clearly on the camera phone, and that way when we come to getting to our final image where we'll ink over all of these building blocks, everything will become nice and clear. I've got my circle here, I'm splitting that in half straight down the middle. And if you imagine that I half this circle across the centre line as well, I'm going to go down and go just a little bit over half this circle distance again, straight down. I'm going to go probably an extra 2/3 of this circle length down, and that's going to give me kind of a long, nice pointy anime head shape. I'm going to curve in from the left hand side, so starting from this outside angle edge, curving down, doing the same on this side. And as we curve down and curve in, I'm going to get to around about here and actually just fill this off to a point. And this creates the overall pointy chin element, the bottom of our anime character's face. Lovely stuff. Now, I'm going to go in and actually put a halfway point right between this overall head height now. That's going to be around about here. And this tells me where my character's eyes are going to fall into. And then if I go halfway again, it tells me roughly where the nose is going to be, and then that mouth is going to be just above halfway between the nose and the chin, somewhere around about here. This is roughly how we measure in the anime faces. So going back up to where the eyes are, I'm going to start right back up here and give this character a top of an eye that goes just over this line, so to speak. So I'm going to start just up here on the right, just a curve that goes up and over, like a single curve. And you can almost imagine you're drawing a really simple version of a bird in the distance, where you just draw a little kind of M shape, but the M's split down the middle. So we've got one part here, one wing, one top of the eye, and one part over there as well. Now, with the rest of the eye, I'm going to drop off by drawing a pupil, and that's going to become not a perfect circle, but a slightly elongated shape that drops down here and fills in this gap quite nicely, where the bottom of the eye just touches the bottom part of this circle. So we've got a nice convenient zone to fit that in, and then I'm just going to get the outside of the lash following this curve down. Remember, the eyes are often these sort of almond shapes, so we could follow this all the way around and down here, all the way around and down here, but it won't quite be a final line. Now, with the Major, she's got some very strong eyebrows and opinions. So I'm going to just have a line that comes up here, just inside the left hand part of the eye, and shoots right off to the left in a relatively straight line before it hooks back down and in. And then on this side it's going to start right up here where the eyebrow is, curve over, and come out to the side as well. The eye itself is going to have some pupil in the middle, here and here, and then maybe some light spots just off to the top right of the pupil. It's always good to get those reflections of light in of the characters. Going down to the nose, we're going to mark this out really simply. Just a bit of a triangle of shadow that comes off to the left, around about here. I've put that just above this nose line, but there's a tiny triangle that goes to the bottom as well. And as for this lip, I'm going to create a shape that just dips down here in the middle of the lip, just goes down on either edge like so, and then I'm going to have a fairly thick bottom lip that just curves off bottom center part of that line like so. So we need to get in some hair for this character. Now you can kind of describe Major Motoko Kusanagi's hair, I was just going to call her the Major there really casually. Her hair kind of has these three main shape blobs, so to speak. Now the first one is the kind of back of the head, the overall shape of the hair as it comes up. That's really big, and I'm going to describe it as a kind of circle or arc. It just comes really far off this circle but follows the shape of this circle round like so, and it's going to curve right round and down towards the eyes, Just going to make sure this is all in focus. Lovely, it is. By the way, it's been a while since I've done these. If you guys follow along the channel quite regularly, welcome along, you'll know that I hurt my hand skiing. So I'm taking things quite gently. It's looking quite rough because I need to be really careful about the ligaments. No really hard pencil pressure, casual. But if you guys are new to the channel, welcome along. Come click that subscribe button. Go on, give it a click and you can join in for more stuff in the future. It really helps me out. So this is kind of the back of the top of the hair. We're not going to see much of this. It's just a good guiding measuring stick. Because as for the rest of things, we're going to go ahead and create this big kind of jagged fringe that she's got. And we're going to create it at an angle. So just above the head circle, I'm going to create a line that goes across higher on the left and lower on the right. And then as it sticks out, I'm actually just going to curve this off as a great big curved shape, little half circle that comes right down and drops down to the same level as the original head circle, comes to around about here. And this is going to mark where the fringe zigzags in and out. And then on this side it bulges out much less, but ever so slightly like this, like she's wearing a really weird hat. Now don't worry, these shapes are going to make sense when we ink it in. But basically, I'm going to come off of here and I'm going to start to draw loads of different spikes of hair. One that goes out, but the rest are going to kind of keep following this curve that curves in that direction towards the right. So if you imagine that now that I've got this guiding line, I'm going to curve in, I'm going to create a few spikes of hair that come up and round, and it doesn't have to be perfect. You can just follow along and create a similar series of spikes of hair that go in and out, up and down, up and around. And as you get near the eyes, they don't quite cover down the eyes themselves, so do leave plenty of space up around the head. In the middle, there's a big main one that goes across like a kind of curving pointing triangle. It hooks all the way down, goes down near the eye line like so, before going up and back. And then we can just fill it in by putting some smaller pointy jagged triangle places just in along here. It's kind of hard to describe, but you do get quite used to it. If you get used to drawing these quick pointy triangles in that just curve round, and they kind of frame the face and the eye and so on as everything goes in. And you'll notice now the curves are just going in the other direction to match this curving circle over on this side as well. So you've got this little silhouette line of all these jagged hair bits up and down along here. And that's going to be something we're going to come back to. The face itself, I might just widen out just a little bit. Not a huge amount, but ever so slightly on either side. I'm looking at this at an angle to make sure that the top of my head doesn't show on the camera phone. So I do get a kind of thinned out version that I might end up drawing. So I'm going to just thicken that a touch. And then now the other main section, back of the head, fringe, that you use to mark out the Major's hair are her kind of weird massive bangs on either side. So these are fairly simple. They kind of start from around the back of the head and you can just draw these two great big kind of falling triangle shapes, and that's going to just mark everything out. Now if I take the height of this character's head and then just imagine that starts around about the eyes, so the whole head height shifted down to about the eye level, that kind of drops to around about here. And that's very roughly how long these bangs tend to fall in terms of the standalone complex anime, especially the second season, second gig. In the original manga film it's much shorter, in Arise it's even shorter still, and even in the first series of the anime I think it's a little bit shorter, but it's always roughly this kind of haircut that she goes for. So right down here from the inside edge of the jawline, this big sweeping triangle shape, and I'm going to hook it round really thick, curve it back up so it curves in this arc all the way back up somewhere around near the eyes, just like this. And then I'm going to split that out again by creating a few sort of jagged points that curve off here. This is the main one that comes all the way down, so that's fine. But maybe it's just going to be another jagged point off there, just like so. And then something similar is going to happen on this side as well. It's going to come all the way out here, and then from around about here, it's just going to create this curving shape. It's going to flow slightly more off to the right, just by sort of catching the wind or anything like that. I'm just going to have a point that curves off here. And again, this doesn't have to be exact because it's hair. It's always going to be flowing and ever so slightly different. As long as the overall shape's correct, your brain's going to recognize it as being that kind of silhouette from that kind of character. Like so. Lovely. So we've got this kind of overall head area in. That's great. Let's get in with the other bits of the character. So we're going to have a neck that drops off just about down here, just inside where the hair meets the face, like so. And then if you imagine, we're going to get the body shape of this character in. We've got this hairline down already, which is quite useful. The shoulders though are going to be a little bit higher, probably about halfway between the bottom of the hair and the bottom of the chin. So if you imagine this point, we're going halfway here, going to go out on either side. I'm going to imagine that this character, the maximum point of the shoulders is going to be about 3 heads wide at the very, very most. So I'm going to go about this far out again, round about here, this far out again, roughly round about here, and then I'm going to put on this very large heavy jacket she has, which goes over her combat bodice that she wears as well. Very alluring. So if we just come up from this neckline, and I'm just going to imagine a line that curves out, or I should say just shoots out, right across this shoulder height line that we've kind of got in, and then that's going to be our jacket point. The overall style of the body and the shape is much closer in. With a jacket, even a big one, it's probably not going to go further out than hair. So if we imagine this is our framework that the character is going to fit into, but we're going to create a curve that comes in like this. That's going to be absolute outer edge of her chest, and this is with a heavy jacket on, which is why it's extra wide than usual. If you watch my other tutorials about drawing anime characters in general, because obviously this is a very particular one about just drawing this one particular image and breaking it down to shapes. Welcome, Mondays. But the general tutorials are about the overall fundamentals to draw any character, and you'll notice that we usually make the chest a bit smaller. This is all about fitting it in over this massive heavy jacket. So let's go even further down, deeper still. This neckline is quite long on the major, and then it just goes out to be the actual shoulders, and there's going to be some collarbone and all sorts of bits around about here in this section. It just goes in and down like so, and then maybe just a couple lines up but show where they meet the neck as well. The jacket itself on this side, where we've got this bit of hair coming in, is probably going to drop fairly straight down, and then using this curve as a bit of a guide point, this jacket's going to come all the way up around here with a really big lapel, and it's going to create this triangle point that kind of comes in to about here, to about halfway up. Let's go ahead and copy something similar on the other side as we build it up. So dropping all the way down, and then this big kind of triangle shape that goes outside this curve of a circle, points to around here, and then goes up around the back. And then about here, just below this kind of collarbone line, if you imagine where the middle of the collarbone is, we're just going to create a line that actually just shoots off down here and down here as well. And again, this is a bit of a guide, just helps you understand where a lot of this is being placed, just so you've got a good measure of the shape and how much space it takes up. This lapel is going to curve in, it's going to fold into things down here. It's going to do the same thing down there. So if our overall outline is here, here, follows along, up and around, and back, and down. Great stuff. So let's quickly fill in the middle of this character. Let's get a center line, comes all the way down, and the chest of a major is going to be around about here. It's going to drop off here where she's going to have her boobs. They're not going to be over accentuated, but they do essentially create a couple of circles which are held up by the bodice, one here and one here. You don't have to worry about this too much, just know that basically the bodice shape itself is in the form of this triangular cup on either side. It comes down here, right down to this point, and it comes up here, up to this point. Get another line in to show where it has that shape and that form, and it drops off in a little V down there as well. So she's got round here, all of this synthetic flesh body area, then the combat corset thing, this bodice starts about there. Now, as for the rest of the jacket then, some simple shapes and bit. This is the outside part of the body of the jacket. It's going to drop off a little bit down from here, from these guiding lines. We've probably got a few notches and shapes that just show how it's kind of built up and where the buttons are. So I'm just going to create this flap over here that's open. On this side, this would be the other button that flap would actually go into when it's closed. We're going to get the shoulders in as well. So we're going to go up here towards that outer edge we were working towards earlier. Level that off and up towards this outer edge. And again, level that off. Just making sure that's all still on screen. Lovely. Sliding up the pad a bit. And then there's a little notch that kind of goes around about here that just shows where it might have kind of almost military insignia or something going on in epaulets. And then the rest of the arms are just going to shoot down from this point. They're just going to casually go off here and go off down here. We're going to accentuate this ever so slightly by just showing all sorts of curves in the fabric. So I'm just going to create a curve that's going to be the actual shoulder here and here, because that's arm's going to create pressure inside the fabric and material. But then after that, it's going to essentially create a load of lines that go up towards the armpit or away from the armpit. So just imagine lines going away from the armpit, kind of leveling out, and again up towards the armpit around about here, just guidelines that sort of slowly level out. And then I'm actually going to use these just to create little folds in the fabric, in the material instead, just like this, just like so, like this and like this, just as a guide to roughly how things are actually folding and falling into place. And then that way I can just create a bit of a gap on the inside here, just to show where it all is. Maybe a couple just other further flaps of material down here and here, where the jacket's got further form and shape. But otherwise, that is about it. Let's have another quick look through the camera phone. Right. So this might look like a great big mess of lines, but not to worry. What we're going to do is drop into some time lapse. I'm going to put an ink layer on top of this, and you'll be able to see which lines we're keeping and which lines we're getting rid of, and then I'll see you guys right at the end. Don't forget, in terms of the hair, probably going to have a few jagged lines of shadow in here, but we'll come back to that for the colouring. See you in just a sec. And there you have it, a nice, quick, simple, easy picture of Major Motoko Kusanagi from Ghost in the Shell. I hope you were able to see in a time lapse which lines we kept and which were just for building blocks to help figure out the shape of our character. I'm going to go ahead and scan this in. The flesh tone is going to be very light because she has a synthetic cyborg body and a very light skin. The eyes for this version of her tend to be a kind of reddish colour. The hair is always kind of going somewhere between purple and blue. It's slightly more purple for the standalone complex version. The bodice is in white and the jacket is mostly a kind of medium grey, with all of these highlights and areas being a nice brass colour. I hope you guys have found this tutorial to be useful. Thank you so much for following along at home and giving this video a watch. It really helps me out. Get in the comments below and let me know what other characters you'd like to see. Give it a like and don't forget to come and subscribe for more of this in the future. It really is a pleasure having you guys along and it really helps me out. So thank you so much. I'll see you guys soon. Take care.